Hello and welcome everyone to our Social Advertising Trends 2022 event for Europe. My name is Riikka Söderlund. I am the VP of Marketing here at smartly.io, and today I'm joined by Khaled.
Hi everyone, this is Khalid Halwani. I'm based in Berlin. I'm a senior creative strategist looking after Europe and Asia.
We're thrilled to have Khaled today join us and dig through some of the most interesting trends and insights we gathered from the social advertising survey that we at Smartly run every year. Smartly, of course, is the leading automation platform for advanced social media advertisers. So we pride ourselves in making sure that we also survey those advanced advertisers at the beginning of every year to dig a little deeper to what they feel are the key focus areas and perhaps the newest trends that we all should be on the lookout for. So one of the things that's interesting, because we do survey CMOs across the globe, not just here in Europe, is to see the regional differences between different markets. Um, Especially here in Europe, an interesting phenomena has been that social advertising isn't necessarily kind of the first instinct of most CMOs. In fact, in the US and in Asia, advertisers spend a little bit more on social advertising than they do here in Europe. In Europe, 44% of respondents this year reported that they use over half of their advertising budgets into social media. So I was wondering, Khaled, if this is something that you've seen in your work as well. Why is Europe lagging, or are we just in a different phase or a different situation than the other regions?
I think there are a couple of things that play in when it comes to spending in Europe. I think privacy has been a big talk from GDPR. There are a bit of uh, s- uh, uh, things that slowed down the whole kind of adoption of this. And even if you look at other aspects from a content perspective, if you look at the influencer marketing industry, you see a lot of more brands reaching out, paying bigger budgets for people or stars rising from social in places like Asia through live streaming and the super apps they have. And then in the US also you do have a lot of trendsetters globally, brands being headquartered mostly in the US have bigger budgets and are working with agencies or directly uh, by shifting global budgets of marketing from the US. That kind of maybe also uh, gives you a different aspect of the spending in Europe being a bit behind. But also the channel adoption in Europe is very different. So if you look at Snapchat, for example, you look at the US being number one market, and then you have markets in the Middle East like Saudi Arabia or India following that. So if we look at an aggregate spend on everything, privacy plays a role, adoption of the channels plays a role as well. I think in Europe we do have also a different demographic and aging population that plays a role of like where are you spending most of your time? Is it on Facebook, Instagram, and so on? What's happening is also businesses are coming up, the digital natives are attracting the younger demographics. And what I see in Europe, sometimes the positions also of specific roles are a bit on the millennial side or older than the digital natives in that sense. So all of those could play a factor. But I just wanted to expand on why the others are having much more spend. It's they're noticing cost effectiveness. It's very effective to advertise on social comparing to offline, which is overrated and overpriced. You also have engagement. It's for the very first time in the past 5 6 years we've been seeing exponential budget increases to social because of the two-way stream where brand sentiment and you understand what the customers need or want to personalize on social, the reach is wide. And the last bit I'm going to hit on is the 6 T's, which is timely. Social media is timely, it's moment driven, it's efficient, it's transparent. So for the measurements that you're seeing, you can go granular to understand what really works. You can still target even if iOS 14 is gone with all the signals bringing to social. You can still understand how do you target with your creative a specific audience segment. With targeting, you can also go into tracking, which is looking at the consumer journey from the website to your social channels on digital. The last 2 T's that are super important right now with the loss of signal is tweaking your creative timely, so making those changes and iterations, and testing to learn. And those are not in the traditional forms of advertising.
Yeah, very, very true, and good advice for all for everyone listening as well. You mentioned an interesting point there about sort of channel adoption and how different regions are maybe in different phases when they adopt these social channels. We've of course seen a massive change in consumer behavior over the past 2 years or so, not just because of the pandemic, but the rapid digitalization as well. And that's another interesting kind of difference that we see globally, don't we? Some of the more emerging channels like Snapchat that you mentioned, or of course last year's talk of the town TikTok, are much more kind of adopted already in US and Asia, whereas Europe, in our survey, is really focused on spending more and increasing their influence in YouTube and Facebook. So the more traditional channels, I'd say. Um, with all these different channels in play, how should advertisers approach all the different platforms that they have to juggle in 2022?
Yeah, very interesting question, Rika. I think the challenge lies with the marketers themselves. If you're approaching a one size fits all mentality, and all social is created equal as a belief, then that's a challenge. It also becomes more challenging on the content production mostly front. And that's due to failure to allocate resources to cope with channel growth and having ambitious communication channel expansion without content strategy. So a marketer today will say, hey, use this content on YouTube, but use the same content on TikTok, Snap, does not think about aspect ratios, does not think about the demographics out behind every channel. This is where it becomes challenging. Now, I'm just gonna give you an example of, the social channels are so similar yet to the traditional ways of buying media before, like even on TV, if you look at. So if I ask you a question, I say like, have you ever seen a Gillette razor commercial on the Cartoon Network channel? It does not fit. Each channel has its own demographic. And even when we're talking about TikTok or YouTube, we're not talking only about the size or the placement or the aspect ratio. We're talking about, does that product belong here or on LinkedIn or and so on. So what I've seen traditional marketers fail at is trying to personalize per channel. So with social media brands and marketers, what needs to be happening right now is to harness and understand the power of each social channel. What are the benefits? What are they looking at in terms of demographics, psychographics, content types, in order to extract the maximum benefit? And with that information, now they can take a step back and create a content strategy mapped to a channel strategy. That's how they need to start. Everyone is starting just by paying and spraying, but not looking at, does this channel really go back to my brand affinity, to my values? How do I create that ecosystem where I can be consistent, but also be personalized in a way?
Very good point. So why don't we talk about the elephant in the room? All advertisers, of course, are now struggling to figure out, well, what is that golden ticket on TikTok? how do I create content on TikTok? What creatives work on that new platform? Yet again, a new platform that I need to adopt this year.
Yeah. So with TikTok, so before we go into what content do you create, how do you create for TikTok, you first need to understand that TikTok has democratized user-generated content as we know it. It gave back the power to storytelling and to the content creator. And it forced marketers for the very first time in the advertising industry to stop thinking as advertisers and start thinking like creators. The moment you do that switch from a marketing perspective and you create just like user generated, authentic content, unpolished, relatable, then you are hacking ways in TikTok. TikTok thrives on snackable, entertaining content. And that content is designed for today's short attention spans. So you need to think one, short videos, quick transitions, UGC look and feel, so that the user doesn't think it's a promoted ad. We've seen Vogue and very, very polished ads all our lives. So this is a fresh look into advertising that is really getting much more numbers. And that's why TikTok is also becoming widely adopted. The other aspect you need to think when you're creating TikTok is not only about you and your content. You need to think about the trends. You need to become trends driven. What trend can you set as a brand? Can you create your own hashtag, your own trend, or do you jump and you go for like what we call trend hacking, and you build on a specific trend that is only relevant to, of course, your communication strategy? And then another aspect is value driven. A lot of TikTokers expect to know a life hack, to know something, to explore a new topic. So you need to drive value with this. Sound is crucial on TikTok. It's everything. It complements very well your creative. And last but not least, consistency in that sense. Those are the elements of what you need to do. The last thing I'm going to say on the TikTok bit, you need to stop thinking, how do I grab attention? You need to start thinking, how do I immerse my audience? So we're moving from attention grabbing where everyone is competing and day trading on to immersion in that sense.
Exactly. I'm guessing a very good first step for any CMO is to actually join TikTok and immerse themselves onto the platform and try to start and understand what their consumers and what their competitors are already doing on the platform, because the adoption of that channel has been just mind-blowing even to us here at Smartly, who for years and years have been following the most advanced advertisers in the world adopt social channels. It's quite unprecedented what we're now seeing happening with TikTok. And it's, of course, like I said, yet another channel for advertisers to consider, which is perhaps a painful conundrum because 41% of the survey respondents here in Europe report that their biggest challenge in social advertising right now is lack of talent. Where to find people to actually do all of this? Of course, automation also plays a role, and technology and creative technology has advanced tremendously. But what does this actually all mean for advertisers? How can they start to utilize automation in a smarter way? And when they do, does that mean that, Khaled, you're out of work?
Yeah. So automation is not something we're seeing only in the media industry or advertising. A lot of things have stopped working the way they did when we grew up. We used to go to photography studios to develop our films. We don't do that anymore. Every time automation comes in and technology, it creates, more opportunities for you to think strategically and efficiently. And I think I'm going to answer this from the perspective of, the media planner and the designer in a bit. Like, as in my line of work at Smartly, I've been talking to a lot of design team and creative teams, and I was a designer myself. I studied graphic design, and I wish the automation that we have today was available for me to spare me all the overnights that I used to stay to do some, heavy labor, manual donkey work. Let's say it this way. If we think automation kills designers, for example, then we are widely disrespecting creativity and design. Because creative teams who fear automation are really saying to the world that their work is a bunch of cosmetic changes and repetitive tasks. I think in my conversations, I've met creative directors and teams, and I was shocked at how they are reducing creativity down to volume production. And this is sad. Instead, they should be embracing technology to distribute and expand their artwork. We have to think volumes if we want to compete in today's market. We have to listen to the market. It's a game of volumes, but not on the expense of quality. How do I make sure that my media planning is optimized, my media buying is optimized, my creative is automated in a way? There's much more to design as well. If we talk about the creative process, it requires concepting, brainstorming, strategic design choices, like how do you create your layout, your hierarchy, your fonts, your it's so much into the design world that you do not offset to machines. You actually have to have that human factor. So no, automation is not killing, it's enabling. So we either have a choice to embrace it or struggle with resources and talent shortage, because once you have freed yourself from those, you can explore much more when it comes to different media strategies, different creative strategies, more testing potential to learn and expand on a concept that works, create hypotheses, have more discussions that are framework driven, strategic, and that's what automation brings.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe in fact it's not a crisis of finding enough talent, it's more about finding the right talent. What are kind of in your mind, if you look into all of the different trends that we've discussed today already, the explosion of different channels, the multi-channel approach, the requirement for automation to actually be able to produce the creatives, and then the pressure on creatives that's of course caused by all the new privacy regulations. What kind of talent should the brands actually be looking at currently to help them with their social advertising?
That's an interesting one. I think in the advertising industry, to be specific, we need to start looking at designers that understand media and media planners or media buyers that understand creative. And both need to be tech savvy, just for the factor of how much you can bring value from technologies out there that help you with your output. The thing is, those two aspects have been siloed for a very long time. In creative teams, I find designers working on content but not understanding context, and that's where content affect context, because your design, even if it's award winning, if it doesn't perform on the 9 by 16 TikTok best practices, then it's gone to waste. So the designer needs to understand the context and how media works so that they can create effectively. And media planners or media buyers need to think, or performance marketers need to think about the most important ingredient and the performance lever in today's world, which is creativity. They need to be empathetic towards creative teams. They need to understand creative processes, and they need to find ways to work in cohesion so that they output. So when we look at about quality is accepting and being able to understand the other team that helps you deliver what you need to deliver. Ambition and passion are definitely qualities we need to look at. You can't work on something you don't like or love. So innovative thinking towards what can increase efficiency, creativity, and not only in the artwork side. When you're creative, you become versatile, you become adaptable, you are prepared for change. I was working in agencies back in the like 5 years ago. Today, it's a totally different setup. Technologies embrace the work, and I think one of the things that is also important as a quality is to be initiative driven in that sense, not stuck to old ways. I've seen a lot of traditional advertisers lose a lot of media money because of just old frameworks that haven't been updated, or use of technology that is not relevant to today's market and the needs. So competitors like digital natives have a growth mindset. They kind of design for today and can, with a very way lower budget, get uh, more efficient teams.
That's a really good point, actually, that it's not just about finding the right talent to execute the campaigns that you already have. It's actually a question of ROI and being able to compete in an environment where everyone is allocating more and more budget to social media channels. The CPMs are rising constantly, and the creative is the one way to combat that rise of cost. So finding right talent definitely a core focus for our CMOs here in Europe, also in 2022. Thank you, Khaled, for sharing your thoughts on social advertising trends for this year. We have the full Europe report soon ready to be downloaded on our website, trends.smartly.io. So you can go and download that to see what the exact channel mixes are and what the specifics are for where advertisers are planning to increase their resources or decrease their resources in some other areas, what the main pain points are, how they are solving them, and really start to also think about how that affects your advertising strategies and social media this year. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.